Losar Tashi. Happy Tibetan New Year, everyone. Welcome. My name is Laila Tara. I'm working at the International Tibet Network, and I'm super excited to bring to you this broadcast today at a very festive day for us Tibetans. We have a really exciting program prepared for you covering music, literature, food, Lhasa traditions, dance. You might even decide to join in today and give it a try. But before saying anything more, I'd like to pass the word to my wonderful co-host today, Tenam La. Please introduce yourself.
Losar. My name is Tenam. I grew up in Tibetan refugee camp in India, and after a few years at the Tibetan government in exile, so since 2006, I'm I'm living here in France, and just like Leila, I'm so excited to share a little bit about Tibetan Losar and how Tibetans celebrate the Tibetan New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super glad to be here with you today. And let's jump right in and start with our first artist, Ted Kyap. Teddy was born in India and moved to New York when he was 9 years old. He is now 29 and loves performing and putting on a great show. He considers himself to be more of a storyteller than a singer or rapper, and he wishes to inspire the youth in his community to take chances and tell their own stories. Please enjoy Ted Kyap.
Hello, my name is Ted Kyap. I live in Queens, New York. I'm 29 years old, and this song. Oh, first of all, shout outs to Layla for inviting me here to share my music. And now about the song. The song is called Gookie, Gookie, which means waiting, and it's about your friends being always late. You know who you are, and yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. I hope you guys enjoy. It has Tibetan and English in it, so I hope you guys, yeah. Jigdadungeni guyi tanjine guyi chule amindu kowa doimbe ye bomu guyi tanjine guyi que les amis du koa doimbe ye bomo cookie les amis du bomo kuran koa doimbe kapa tangdu yakamaso got me little worried baby tapa shada yopo shoda chilo tanji tangni de let's just get to being crazy. Come through, don't keep me waiting. Cookie, train down this on me. Chideni shetan desha. Cookie, amjo cookie, pisha lo du bagu tomba cookie. Cookie, I said, Tanji ne goni dei. Yeah. Why do you have to keep me waiting when I'm at the meetup spot? You wanna change locations? I hit you up about 5 times, and once you answered, couldn't hear nothing but accept the train and the conductor. But then you finally show a sign of text. An hour later, your reply was LOL. Be there in a sec. Forgiven soon as I pictured your smile. Me and you go together like Tibetan food and rice chang. Smile so radiant. Her father's name was Nemo. Her eyes matched the crescent moon. Her mother's name was Dawa. She means the whole world to me. So Zumling's what I call her. Every now and then I like to call you just to hear your laughter. Damn, you should see her skills in the kitchen. Tuesday isn't taco night, pale and chili chicken. Don't know why I said that, but I bet your butt is laughing. I'd like to talk more about it, but I'm still waiting. Gooey, tanjine gooey, chule amindu. Kowa doimbe ye bomo gooey, 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 gooey. Kowa doime pomo kuki le yamindo pomo churon kopa doime kapa tandu yaka muscle got me little worried babe tapa shata yopu shota chilo tanji tangi there let's just get to being crazy come through don't keep me waiting kuki drain down this amici deni shetan Cookie, I'm your cookie, bishalo du baku tong ba cookie, anjine guni dei. Koba yone gyoku shoda. Gonda, I got stuck at work, she says. Tumayangyo machi malada. When they look here, then the train got stuck. For my shiny gyobu shoda. La da 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 da. Uni kale kaso tanga. Guyi anjine guyi. Chule yamidu. Kowa doime yebomo. Stand clear of the closing doors, please. Thank you. I appreciate you. That was the song Gookie. If you like my music, please check me out on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, whatnot. It's TEDD, spacebar KYAP. And yeah. Alright. Maybe another song, yeah? Alright, let's see what song. Yeah. I said, Botodu, Lamsong, Pudi, Tepdore, Samso, Gtashi, Shinehakoso, Kuning 나와 저부갈보, 부족그랑 고원이 레이베. Kinda stakbo emotioni medokiles yeah ani ngedam daleso ani mitidu ye lakbasim so tamne ochidedu nindi kiri lotos been falling for you no hey mare know you've been falling for me too hey mare I said been falling for you hey mare know you've been falling for me too hey mare 그자야 담두 주라닝 제슈 니하메 랍소 주닝 배상보 주기 모셔드 니닝 니차가지기 구하게 야마답네 방건에 든도 니 톡보통모 주라 동에 전에 Logic's good there, cause I'm kinda selfish. Want you for myself. 마다 계란염도 깊쇼주 발라마 시내 말라나와도 so I had the blessing we can build a new home. I've been falling for you now. Call your money, baby, it's alright. Call your money, baby, it's alright. It's all about us tonight. Hey, Marty, hey, Marty. Call your money, baby, it's alright, yeah. Got your money, baby, it's alright. It's all about us tonight. Hey, hey, Marty. That's pretty much it. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Daddy. Oh, I really like this intimate setting with his ukulele. I felt like I'm having a concert in his sleeping room. So that was such a nice one. Thank you, Teddy.
Absolutely. So that was a great start to today's Losar broadcast. So I assume some of you might not necessarily know about our tradition. So let's not keep you waiting. As the first song of Teddy goes, waiting, waiting. So sometimes we say about Losar, like the first day, the way you start your first day will reflect your whole year. To help you understand more about Tibetan Losar, we are incredibly thankful to Tsering Lama, Tashi Lama, who has taken the time to share with us how she and her family celebrates Losar.
Losar Tashidale to all friends who celebrated worldwide. Losar means New Year in Tibetan. My name is Tashi and I live in a multi-generational household here in the United States in the state of Minnesota. Today I'll share how my family celebrates Losar. Before Losar, we clean our homes, go grocery shopping, and prepare special dishes. Kapse, which is a deep-fried delight, is a must. We also prepare rice or barley wine, which is consumed in a porridge-like dish for breakfast on Losar. When I was a kid growing up in India, my dad, who was born in Tibet, shared that when he was a youngster, Losar was celebrated for 15 days in Tibet. Nowadays, we celebrate Losar for 2 to 3 days at best. However, the preparation starts weeks before. And of course, we must have new clothes. My mother-in-law usually orders new chuba for me and my daughter from Tibet. This year, we got matching chubas. The traditional activities before Losar are meant to purify our homes and bodies from obstacles, illnesses, and negativities. Tibetans clean and bathe. We tie new prayer flags in our backyard, and after all the cleaning comes the Gutuk feast. Gutuk is handmade shell-shaped noodles that is eaten along fortune dough balls. It's prepared for dinner 2 days before Losar. In each bowl of soup, we add dough fortune balls that each contain various objects or paper with the name of the objects written on it. The objects are playfully meant to relate to be predictions of the character of the person who gets it. For example, if you get the sun, it would mean you radiate light, positivity, like the sun. In many Tibetan communities, the Gutuk is a community affair. My mother-in-law tells me that in their neighborhood in Tibet, every family contributes to the Gutuk pot and feasts together as a community. After the Gutuk feast, we do a ceremony to banish negativity, obstacles, and sickness. The dough effigy called Lu represents all things we want to vanish from our lives. My parents always gave me the full creative freedom with the Lu. I have fond memories of making the dough ball, painting, and decorating it as a child. We pass the dilu, a piece of dough, to each person to dispel sickness from their body. Everyone squeezes the dilu to get the imprint of the inside of our fist on it. Then we press it on the body parts where we need healing. All these items all go on the lu platter along with a candle, and as a person carries the plate, someone sweeps each room of the house saying, "Tershama, come out," to all the negative energy. The person carrying the platter then takes it out and places it at an intersection away from the house, never looking back as he walks back to the house. This tradition is perhaps my favorite part of Losar. On Losar, everyone wakes up early, we wear our new chubas and participate in the community sangse, which is a ceremony where prayers are chanted and incense is burned early in the morning. Then we usually come home for changgu, which is the porridge made out of rice wine that we prepared before Losar. One essential Losar tradition is the tosu chima. The bow is usually made of wood and is hand-carved and painted beautifully. The bow is filled with barley grains on the right and samba, roasted barley, on the other side and topped with butter and sugar. It is put on the altar and offered to each and every guest over Losar. The day of Losar and the day after, we visit the local temple and visit our close Tibetan friends and family. Since we have new chubas, we definitely take a ton of photos to share. Most grown-ups will give kids cash as Losar gift. We have also started some new Losar traditions. There's a yak farm about an hour away from our house. We visited the farm last year right before Losar and created a new Losar tradition. There is often an all-day Losar party that gets scheduled on the Saturday after Losar, so everyone from the community can attend. Emma, my 5-year-old daughter, loves performing Tibetan dance and songs at the Losar party. Customs do differ region to region, but Losar is the biggest holiday celebrated by all Tibetans worldwide. While many of us Tibetans may live millions of miles away from Tibet and may have never set foot in Tibet, Tibet lives in our heart. We are as much part of it as it is part of us, and there is no better time than Losar to celebrate the joy of being Tibetan.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much, Tashila, for sharing the way you celebrate Lhasa at home, but also just sharing all the insights and explaining all the insights about the traditions around it. I thought it was very interesting. I'm sure many of you have learned some new information. I don't want to take too much time because we have so many more great contributions and topics to go through. And I'm very excited about this next contribution by Tsering from Lama. Tsering was born and raised in Nepal, and she currently splits her time in Canada and Sweden. And her best-selling debut novel, We Measure the Earth with Our Bodies, won the 2023 New Writers Award for Fiction from the Great Lakes College Association and has been nominated for multiple other prizes and awards. Tsering currently is a storytelling advisor at Greenpeace International, and there's plenty more to say, but please go look her up yourself and enjoy listening to her.
Losar to everyone in the International Tibet Network. My name is Tsering Lama, and I am the author of this book. This is a novel called We Measure the Earth with Our Bodies. It came out in May of last year in the US and Canada, and France most recently, and before that India, and it'll be coming out in a few other countries in translation over the next year or so. So I'm just going to read the opening pages and then speak a little bit about the novel itself as well. Lamo, border of western Tibet and Nepal, spring 1960. Amma was an oracle. The realization came to my mother late in life, when her monthly bleeding stopped and something else opened inside. Some in our village called it an affliction. They said there was a crack in her mind that left her open to spirits who would consume her. But Amma insisted it was a blessing to lend her body to the gods and allow them to speak through her. In time, everyone would listen, and the words of an otherwise ordinary woman would lead us through the coming troubles. It wasn't just my mother who had changed. Packs of wolves and rats swept through our valley. Next, there was an earthquake that tore a jagged line through our village monastery. Then, just as I was learning to speak, there came news that invaders had crossed our border, entering our land as 2 enormous snakes. In the distant town of Kardze, people watched them cross the river in long lines and burrow into the highlands. They wished to be called the People's Liberation Army, but we knew them as the Kami, a people from the lowlands to the east. In the years that followed, rumors came like crows, even traveling as far west as our village. Although I was just a young girl, many of the rumors landed in my ears before anyone else in my family. My source was Laksam, my oldest friend. He worked as a servant to a traveling merchant who traded in gossip as much as iron pots and pans. In our free moments, Laksam and I wandered in the pastures with my little sister Tenki, hanging on my back or flopping around in the grass. In those hills, Laksam told me the most shocking stories. Kami soldiers had seized farmland in the east, and many of our people were now starving. No grain, no salt, no meat or even butter. I walked around in a daze after hearing this, unable to imagine life without butter. Laksam said that although it was quiet in our region, a resistance raged in the east, in places where iron birds circled the skies and bullets, big and small, rained down on entire towns, smashing bodies as if they were nothing but effigies made of dough. where limbs fell suddenly on rooftops and no one could tell whether they had found the hand of a loved one or that of a stranger. But I did not tell my family these things. I never repeated them to anyone. Then, last spring, our village heard of a terrifying ruse, a plan to lead the precious one into the dragon's home. Hearing about this trap, thousands of our people in Lhasa gathered around the summer palace, forming a protective circle with their bodies. Even as the soldiers neared and the scent of gunpowder swirled in the air, our people refused to leave. To prevent a massacre, the precious one disguised himself as a commoner and fled south by night to another country. So did the great Nechung oracle who had divined their escape route through the mountains. When the foreign troops learned that the precious one had slipped away, they pierced the crowd with bullets and lined the street with corpses. After the precious one left, the sun was erased from our skies. Flowers refused to bloom and our yaks made no milk. In that darkness, every family in our village wondered if it was time to leave, to follow our leader to the lowlands until the day when it would be safe to return. Others recited a bleak, ancient prophecy. When the iron bird flies and horses run on wheels, the people of snows will be scattered like ants across the face of the earth. It was that day, nearly 10 years after revealing that the gods had spoken to her, when Amma said to us, "Now is the time. I must give my body to the spirits." Sitting on the kitchen floor beside my sister, I watched my father's face in the hearth's glow. Bala remained still as we chewed on strips of dried meat that Amma had cured over the winter. It seemed as though our father were clearly picturing everything that would change for us. But after a long while, he frowned, showing all of his new wrinkles at once, and nodded in agreement. By morning, our entire village had heard that Amma would begin the rites for instructing the gods. She would finally call them down to her. So, the novel itself, as you can tell, begins the moment that a nation is lost, and it travels over 50 years, following this family's story as they, leave Tibet on foot and become refugees, and then become exiled, stateless people in Nepal and India, and then further on into Canada. So it's really the story of a fractured family, and also the story of a Tibetan way of being that is transformed profoundly by exile. I wrote this novel because, I couldn't help it. I wanted to write about the kinds of people that I grew up around, and as I started thinking about Tibetan people, it became really important for me to think about our modern history, our recent history. And I think a big part of this book is also a celebration of the specific kind of spirit that Tibetan people have, forged out of great suffering, but also out of a sense of kinship and solidarity with each other against, a formidable foe. And I think that spirit is worth celebrating and worth, really elevating and rendering in art. And I think, in a day like now, with Tibetan Losar, I think it's a really important time to celebrate Tibetanness and the ways in which, Tibetan people have really beat the odds in so many ways, even though there's a tremendous amount of suffering still happening and so much that's still at stake. It's kind of incredible to think of how much Tibetan people have achieved. We should be annihilated by now, and we aren't. So, that's basically this book. It's a story of a family. It's a story of two sisters and a daughter. It's a love story that doesn't always work out, and it's a story that talks about what it's like to be alive as a Tibetan today. And that's it. Thank you so much. Yours.truly to everyone, and hope you have a safe and healthy and happy year ahead. And many thanks, and take care.
Thank you so much, Tsering. So I had the fortune of meeting Tsering Lama, at the release of the French edition of her first novel. And during the release, I think what was very interesting was, in a sense, this novel puts Tibetan women right at the center of our recent history, the right place of 4 very powerful Tibetan women. And like Tsering Lama says, these Tibetan women have played a pivotal role in sort of, preserving our civilization. It's not just our culture; it's a civilization in exile. And that's why I think it's a very powerful book, about Tibet and the place of Tibetan women and the role of Tibetan women in the recent history of Tibet. Moving on, Tarala. So, how is your Gorshey skill?
My Gorshey skill, I think they could be improved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No problem then. Then this is perfect for you. Our next artist is Sonam Chokey. So she has been practicing Tibetan performance arts since 6 years old, and for the past 10 years now, she has also been teaching, Tibetan dance, Tibetan songs, and she was also the national director of Students for Free Tibet, Canada. So you can also find her quite regularly on YouTube and other social media, teaching dances in Toronto. So please enjoy this next clip. So Sonam's greatest wish is to someday do this song and dance, Gorshey, in an independent Tibet. Please enjoy.
Lola Losar sang Sonam Chokey. Hi everyone, my name is Sonam Chokey, and today International Tibet Network has asked me to talk to you a little bit about Gorshey. If you are on YouTube, if you are on the internet, if you are on social media, you will have noticed that Gorshey has taken the world by storm. And I'd like to believe that Toronto is one of the key factors in making Gorshey so popular in exile, especially. So Gorshey obviously originates inside Tibet, and Tibetan music, dance, and culture is something that has existed for thousands of years. But we have noticed that Gorshey has specifically become popular in the last few years, and it has been a way for Tibetans, especially young Tibetans who have never been to Tibet, who have never visited, who've only heard stories through our parents and grandparents, to really feel connected to Tibetans inside Tibet. So for me personally, I started learning Tibetan music and dance when I was 6 years old, which is also when I first moved to Canada. And ever since then, I attended Sunday schools just like a lot of other young Tibetans who have grown up in the West. And for me, Tibetan music and dance is specifically what really resonated with me and helped me to understand my identity as a Tibetan much better. And it was in around 2008, which is when I was in high school, when I really was able to understand the political struggle of Tibetan people. This is when the Beijing Olympics was happening, and I remember seeing so many young Tibetan, especially Tibetan women, taking action and raising their voices inside Tibet and inside China. And I knew that, simply learning and singing and dancing Tibetan music and culture wasn't going to be enough. That we, as Tibetans who were born after 1959, we have a greater purpose in life, and we are simply born into this movement as activists. And so throughout my university experience, and from 2015 to 19, I worked as the National Director of Students for Free Tibet Canada. And throughout this time, my love for Tibetan music, it never changed. And after learning for many years at the Sunday schools, in about 2013, I started to teach as well. And so for me, Gorshey is something that has really just brought in everything that I know and understand about being Tibetan. And so in many ways, this is a moment in my life where I've just been able to really find something that I love, something that helps me navigate my own life, but also really feel connected to Tibetans inside Tibet. And so there is an entire generation of Tibetans now who have been born and raised in Canada who are coming to Lhakar Gorshey and, you know, dressing in Tibetan clothes, trying to speak more Tibetan, understanding their identity. And slowly, again, this is like a window for Tibetans to, like, I guess, transition into becoming more politically aware of the situation inside Tibet. So for me, there's this one specific song. It's called Gtashi Shabdo Tapsho, and it is a song that originates in Kamruoche, which is where both my parents are from. And there is a specific line in this song that really deeply resonates with me, and it goes like this in Tibetan. Basically, the lyrics is Kambe pomo ruoche lo lodu Gtashi Shabdo Tapsho. So when the Kamba girl returns to Ruoche, dance on auspicious dance. And for me, this is really meaningful because I have never been to my Payu, I've never been to Ruoche. And this song is basically saying, when the Kamba girl returns, when I return to Tibet, when I return to Ruoche, my Payu, do an auspicious dance. And so many of us talk about, you know, our dream of one day dancing in front of the Potala or dancing in a free and independent Tibet. And this song basically sings exactly that. So I'm going to try my best to walk you through a quick tutorial, and then we can dance together. So if you are lucky enough to be living in a place where there are Tibetans and Gorshey is something that happens regularly, then you're very lucky. If not, I hope that the internet and this initiative by Tibet Network makes you feel more connected. Thank you so much to Tibet Network for this opportunity, and happy Losar. Bye everyone, take care. Hi everyone, so we're now going to learn the steps to Gtashi Shabdo, and my style of learning Gorshey might be different from others. I usually dance using intuition and by feeling the music and recognizing the lyrics and the sequence of the song. So I'm not really going to be counting too much, but what you can do is you can pause the video and learn each sequence and then do it at the end with me together. So I'm going to teach you the 3 sequences. That's the fun thing about Gorshey. A lot of the Gorshey steps are similar, and then what they do is they take a sequence of these steps and then choreograph it so that it's repeated throughout the dance. So it's not like you're going to learn like a different choreography for the entire song. It's one that's usually repeated. So the 3 sequences, this is the first one, and this is how the song begins. And it's also danced in the middle when there is an instrumental break with no vocals. So you're starting with your right foot and swinging your arms to the right, and then you switch to the left and you just keep going back and forth. So here we go, the right foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I'm not going to be counting how many you need. Later when we're dancing, you'll start to get the hang of it. So I'm going to turn so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so that's the first sequence. This is the second one. Right, left, kick, left, right, kick, right, left, kick, left, right, kick. That was 4 times. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then turn. 1, 2, 3. That was 3 times. That's the second sequence. Now this is the last sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do this turned around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. And you repeat that a bunch of times according to the music. And yeah, pause the video and replay it and learn the parts if you need to, and then let's dance together at the end.
Thank you so much, Sonamla. Oh, this was really fun. I absolutely share your dream to be dancing in a free Tibet one day, to celebrating Losar together in a free Tibet one day. Oh, I'm getting hungry from all this dancing. Sonamla, what is your favorite Losar food?
Oh, one of my favorite Losar food is what my father used to make. Before a month before Losar, he would start preparing, especially with pork meat. And one of his favorite sayings would be like, we come from the east of Tibet, so come. So he used to say like, the real Kampas eat pork the way he makes it, not the yak meat. Anyway, so this is my sort of memory of Losar. Every year, we used to have the same thing. So yeah. Anyway, so talking about food, so I'm really excited to present our next contributor, Kyikyi. So Kyikyi is the owner of the first women-owned Tibetan frozen food in the US, called Himalayandumplings, with a strong wish to preserve her family recipes. So she started cooking her cherished family recipes at pop-up events in small tents with borrowed cookware. Now she has ready-to-cook Tibetan meals on the market and is currently working hard on her dream to open her little Himalayan dumplings factory. So get your pen and papers ready, and you can learn to make one of the most important meal of the Losar, chanku.
Hello, my name is Kyikyi, and I am the founder of the first women-owned Tibetan food brand in the United States. I am very excited and honored to be here today with friends of International Tibet Network, celebrating a very auspicious day for the Tibetans, the first day of our Losar, which is Tibetan New Year. And I can't wait to share with you one of the hallmark dishes of Losar. We call it changu in Tibetan, which is essentially fermented rice wine in porridge form like this. The same recipe can also be made into chang, which is in beverage form. Before we start, let me share a little bit about my background for better cultural context. My name is Kyikyi, and I'm a third generation Tibetan in exile and a Tibetan immigrant in the US. Like many Tibetans, I also grew up in India and Nepal before I immigrated to the US. Even as a third generation Tibetan exile, I definitely think about Tibet often, even though I've never set foot in it. Some days it definitely makes me very sad of what's going on in Tibet, and I try to focus as best as I can on what I can do as an individual to raise awareness of Tibet. And for me, our culinary heritage has definitely become that medium through which I raise awareness about Tibet, or at least how I know best. This is why, after 6 years of doing local pop-ups, I decided to launch the first women-owned Tibetan food brand in the US last year. It's my way of owning a narrative, but more importantly, also telling our story on a national scale. So with that shared, let's get started and see how changu is made. In Tibetan culture, we make changu from rice, millets, or even barley. Only 2 ingredients are needed. The first is rice, or jasmine rice in this case, and the second is pup, as we say in Tibetan, which is basically dry yeast balls which you can find at Asian stores. While the rice is being cooked, I grind the pup down to a powdery form. It's a little coarse, doesn't have to be fine, and that's okay. Once the rice is cooked, it's time to spread out the cooked rice into a thin layer, just like this, to cool down the temperature. We want the rice to be warm to touch, not hot, so that way we're creating an optimal temperature in order for the yeast to ferment. Next, using our hands, we want to mix the yeast and rice really good. Make sure the yeast is everywhere. So that way, once that's mixed, We're going to put it into a container, preferably with the lid, airtight lid, so that way we can create an optimal space or environment for your chung to ferment. Temperature is everything to make sure your chanku ferments quickly and properly. So we really swaddle the container like a baby. We normally wrap it up with shawl or a blanket or something like that. We bundled it up and then I put it away, usually in a dark corner of my house. This is where the cabinet is, and it stays there for roughly 5 days before it ferments. After roughly 5 days, your chanku is ready. You open your container, you can smell the aroma, and look at all that liquid. That's chung right there. As is our custom, the first serving is the put, which always goes to our shrine. So here is my put for Losar. And now the fermented rice part is ready to be cooked into a porridge form that we call chanku. We're literally going to just add some water. This is chura, an optional ingredient. These are basically dried cheese bits made from tree or the female yak. Even after soaking and cooking, the chura is still a bit chewy, but definitely adds a very nice mouthfeel and complements the texture of changu. Another optional ingredient is to add a beaten egg to it, and it tastes really amazing. And that's it. The most important ingredients probably were care and patience, aside from rice and pup. Growing up, some of my fondest childhood memories are probably related to Losar. We didn't have very much growing up. We lived in a one room apartment, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, the first thing on Losar, Tebachik, my mom and dad would wake us up early in the morning, my brothers and I. We were always sleeping on the floor. And Losar Tashi Dele around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we would be greeted with a warm bowl of chanku, just like this, with some kapse dipped in it, and we would slurp that down and then sleep for another couple of hours before we woken up again. And that was a really exciting part because we got to wear brand new clothes. I remember putting my brand new shoes under my pillow because back then we rarely got new clothes or shoes. It probably happened about twice a year, and Losar was one of them. So it was a very exciting time. I hope you enjoyed the recipe as much as I enjoyed sharing them. This is Coco, by the way. He too was very interested. Actually, I think he's much more interested in trying some chanko and kapse. But anyway, I hope we get to cross paths again after this program. I am on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, under Himalayandumplings. It's just Himalayandumplings with an S at the end, where I share a lot more about our Tibetan culinary heritage, my journey as a Tibetan immigrant, building the first women-owned Tibetan food brand in the United States. And if you are a Momo or a Tibetan hand pie lover, then you can sign up on my website, as I'm getting ready to ship soon as well, and open my little Himalayan dumpling factory here in Oregon. Tuchiche.
Oh my God. So that was absolutely delicious, right? That looked absolutely delicious. And like Igla said, it seems like, it is a collective memory of, so many Tibetans, waking up on the first day of Losar with, a warm chanku to, greet the new year. So Tarala, we are already approaching the end with one special contribution from Gtashi and KKush to Tibetan musicians. So I would really like to thank you for having me on this show, and it has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much, Tarala.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining. I'm really excited about our last artists, but before introducing them, I would like to give huge thanks to everyone who has contributed to this broadcast. I believe this has been a great way to celebrate Losar all together and celebrate, our beautiful, beautiful Tibetan culture So thank you to all of you who have contributed, and huge thank you to you, Tenamla, for co-hosting with me today. It was an absolute pleasure, and thank you to everyone watching. To Cheche, Lasalatashi Dele. Now,
Absolutely.
please enjoy this last contribution by KKush and Gtashi. Both are Tibetan songwriters and rappers making music out of Dharamsala. Their songs are based on real life experiences and emotions, and both dream of starting their own record studio to produce their own music, but also help other Tibetan artists. They hope that one day Tibetans in Tibet will have the same rights to express their thoughts and emotions through art freely, and wish to perform in the future together with other Tibetan artists in a free Tibet. Please enjoy, everyone. Lasalata Shidile.
Lasalata.
Tele everyone. My name is Tashi Gyatso. You can also call me Gtashi.
My name is Tizuku-san, and y'all can call me Kush. And thanks ITN for having us. And I would like to take this opportunity and thank IDN for their work towards our Tibetan struggle. And yeah,
We are Tibetan artists based out of Dharamsala. We are part of growing Tibetan music scene in exile with a blend of traditional and modern music. So hope you enjoy the second music. Okay.
yeah.
세상에 내 생기 써져지는 민도 봉에 shake shake 네 람디링 부미스 도 막 그분매 그분매 막 처음에 방에 그분매 이제 예 저디 쇼에 이제 키시 남디 티베 거나 Simba Kyikyi Tala Langa Tongpa Chawe Nala Kuda Kyikyi Tema Kisi Namti Tibe Kapna Simba Kyikyi Tala Langa Tongpa Chawe Nala Kuda Kyikyi Tema Thank you.
Once again, Samalu Losar Tele.
Losar Tele.
Yeah.
Yeah. And keep it down, someone.
Fun.
And enjoy. Yeah.
Judas saw shadow in the shadow.
Summer in England and you go to someone.
Yeah, okay.